your discourse right now and the way I view the problem, and here I'm going to appear maybe more hawkish than you, is that I really think that the catching the jihadists is a small part of the bigger problem.
I do agree with you about that.
Okay, yeah. So, but I think that most people, even those who would agree with much of what you and I say, don't take that additional leap. It's a question of what does it take before you irrevocably change the character of your secular, liberal, modern society, right? If I walk downtown Montreal 15 years ago and every girl is in a miniskirt of every race and nationality and faith or non-faith, that's the Montreal I know. If now half those women are in burqas and niqabs and hijab and so on, it really doesn't take Einstein and Newton to understand what will happen to our society. Notwithstanding the fact that most Muslims will be here, will be lovely and kind and guys that I would want to have tabbouleh with. But that's not the point. The point is what happens to the greater society. So until our politicians are able to sort of enunciate this position, and I think, frankly,
Mm.
right now, the one who comes closest to it, as much as you might despise him and as buffoonish as he is Donald Trump. And in the European context, one who is perhaps much more eloquent is Geert Wilders, right? I
Mm.
mean, short of these two leaders, there's really no one who is engaging in an honest discourse. I mean, does that sound accurate? I mean, do you know anybody else?
Again, I can't sign on to
Geert.
no, I can sign on. I mean, he is talking about this problem at least articulately, and I know he knows what he's talking about. Now, he's one of these people who, if I had him on the podcast, I wouldn't quite know who I was talking to because he says many things that I've agreed with, but obviously he also comes in this toxic nimbus of
Right.
claims about his own intolerance that I would have to find some way of giving some proper shape to. So I don't actually know who Wilders really is. But again, I totally agree that the larger issue is one of the norms and other values that any population shares or can be reasonably expected to share. And I mean, so for instance, how often do you see someone in a burqa or a niqab?
Burqa or niqab is quite rare. I've seen it. As a matter of fact, close to my house, we tried to go to a children's park and saw two women in full burqa. Uh, my daughter got out, felt a bit scared. We got back into the car and left. So it's happened a few times, not too often. But I guess if you expand your question to in Islamic garb, which is various versions of at least some version of a hijab or chador or this or that,
Mm.
then I mean, I could walk out of my house, and out of the first 20 women I see, 8 are wearing Islamic garb. Okay.
Right.
I mean, I just made up that number. I don't know exactly. I haven't actually done that number. But I mean, what I'm saying is there are places in Montreal where it has now become the norm to see women in one form of veil or another. Whereas up to 13 years ago, I had seen one woman from 1975 when we emigrated to Canada to 2003 when I returned from California when I was at UC Irvine. I had seen one woman in my entire life wearing a hijab. Well, from 2003 till today, I can't tell you how many there are. It's endless, it's innumerable. And so the question then becomes, does that alter the fabric of the society? Well, of course it does. I mean, right? Tomorrow there'll be public requests for public prayers. The next day it'll be, right? I mean, Islam doesn't just sit quietly and it's a private expression of one's faith. It always seeks to go into the public sphere. Now, that doesn't mean that every Muslim does this, but it certainly is that Islam, as a set of ideas, doesn't sit quietly in the privacy of one's conscience. And so I know for a fact that tomorrow there'll be somebody at school who'll say, hey, I need to take a break because I need to go and pray. As a matter of fact, I know that at my university, a registrar told me confidentially a few years ago that they now had proctors at the exams who specifically catered to Muslim students if they had to stop during the exam to go off to pray.
Hmm.
Now, that's at a secular university in a secular country. How do these things mesh together?
I completely agree that you open the door to all of these changes, which, because they are anchored to a deep religious bamboozlement, and not all bamboozlements are the same. Yeah, open your society to all kinds of changes in values that you don't want. And I think the commitment to secularism and to specific values like freedom of speech has to be defended at really any cost. The line in the sand that has to be drawn is we don't give in to threats toward newspaper editors who publish cartoons. And the fact that we have in the West caved in on those points, we reliably fail to defend secularism and freedom of speech when they're put under challenge. It does not suggest that we will be good at defending these things in the future. We need a total firmware upgrade of our commitment to these principles.
Do you feel hopeful about that? Do you feel that there'll be some trigger, some cataclysmic, point that will cause this sort of stifling, suicidal political correctness to start swinging the other direction, or are we doomed?
Well, I do think the pendulum will swing, and it may be in the process of swinging, but unfortunately it's swinging politically.